Marcus Chen had never seen anything like the Valkari before. Standing in the grand hall of their sovereign vessel, he felt like he had stepped into a palace made entirely of glass and light. The aliens around him moved with careful grace, their skin shimmering like crystal in the soft glow of the chamber. Each one looked fragile, beautiful, and entirely unreal. He was part of Earth's first contact delegation, one of 5 humans chosen to represent their planet to this advanced empire. The Valkari had made contact 3 months ago, and now humanity stood on the edge of joining a galactic community. Marcus was there as a diplomat, though he felt more like a student trying to learn an impossible dance. The Valkari moved slowly, deliberately. Every gesture seemed planned. Every word was measured. They spoke in musical tones that their translation devices converted into precise, formal English. Marcus had been warned about their customs. The Valkari valued protocol above everything. A wrong word, a clumsy movement, could end negotiations before they truly began. Queen Latavera sat on a throne that looked carved from a single enormous diamond. Her skin reflected rainbow colors as she moved her head. Beside her, a smaller figure fidgeted. Princess Shivara, the queen's daughter, looked young even by alien standards. She kept glancing at the humans with wide, curious eyes that sparkled like sapphires. "The ceremony will begin," announced a tall Valkari official. His voice echoed through the hall. Marcus and the other humans stood at attention. They had practiced this moment for weeks. The ceremony was supposed to be simple, an exchange of formal greetings, a presentation of gifts, and then negotiations could begin in earnest. Marcus felt sweat forming on his palms despite the cool air. The queen rose from her throne with liquid grace. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. Princess Shivara stood as well, moving to stand slightly in front of her mother as the Valkari, custom dictated for royal children during ceremonies. That was when Marcus heard it. A sound like metal groaning under stress, thought his eyes snapped upward. In the ornate ceiling high above, something was moving. A massive decorative panel, covered in precious metals and carved stone, had come loose from its moorings. It swayed once, twice, and then began to fall. The Valkari froze. Their careful, measured movements meant they saw danger too slowly. The panel was falling directly toward Princess Shivara, tons of metal and stone accelerating toward the small crystalline figure. Marcus didn't think. His body moved before his mind caught up. He launched himself forward, his boots pounding against the polished floor. The other humans shouted behind him. The Valkari finally began to react, but they moved like people underwater, their delicate bodies unable to generate speed. Marcus reached the princess a heartbeat before the debris. He grabbed her small body, surprised by how light she felt, how her skin was hard and smooth like porcelain. He pulled her against his chest, twisted, and put his back between her and the falling destruction. The impact drove him to his knees. Metal slammed into his shoulders. Stone cracked against his spine. Something sharp cut across his back. Pain exploded through his body, white-hot and overwhelming. He heard himself grunt but held the princess tighter, making himself into a shield, into a wall between this fragile creature and death. Debris continued to rain down around them. Smaller pieces bounced off his arms, his head. He felt warm blood running down his neck. The world seemed to slow, each second stretching into eternity as the destruction continued to fall. And then it stopped. The hall was absolutely silent. Dust hung in the air like fog. Marcus stayed still for a moment, making sure nothing else was coming down. His back screamed in protest, but he could feel the princess moving against his chest. She was alive, unhurt. Slowly, carefully, Marcus stood up. Blood dripped from cuts on his face and arms. His uniform was torn in a dozen places. A piece of metal had embedded itself in his shoulder, though the pain felt distant now, pushed away by adrenaline. He looked down at Princess Shivara, still cradled in his arms. She stared up at him with those enormous eyes, completely unharmed. Her crystalline skin reflected the emergency lights that had activated throughout the hall. "You're okay," Marcus said quietly. His voice sounded rough. "You're safe now." The princess reached up with one delicate hand and touched his face, her fingers coming away wet with his blood. She looked at it with wonder and horror. The spell broke. Valkari rushed forward from all sides. The queen practically flew across the hall, her usual measured grace abandoned. She reached for her daughter, and Marcus carefully transferred the princess into her mother's arms. "She's not hurt," Marcus managed to say. "I checked. She's fine." Queen Lativera held her daughter close, her crystalline face somehow conveying shock and relief despite its inhuman features. Her eyes moved from her daughter to Marcus, and he saw something in them he couldn't quite name. Royal guards surrounded them now. Valkari physicians approached Marcus with hovering medical devices, scanning him with lights and sensors. They spoke rapidly to each other in their own language, too fast for the translation devices to keep up. "Impossible," one of them finally said in English. "The impact should have." "You should be—" "I'm fine," Marcus said, though now that the adrenaline was fading, he was becoming aware of just how much he hurt. "Just some cuts." "No," the physician said, staring at a holographic display. "You have fractured ribs, deep lacerations, severe contusions. These injuries would have killed any Valkari instantly. Your body absorbed an impact that would shatter our bones like glass." Marcus looked down at himself. He was bleeding, sure, but he could stand. He could move. The metal in his shoulder would need to be removed, but it wasn't life-threatening. For a human, this was bad but survivable. For the Valkari, he was beginning to realize it would have been catastrophic. The queen stepped forward. Her daughter still clung to her, but Shivara was looking at Marcus with something like awe. "You shielded my daughter with your own body," Queen Lativera said. Her voice was steady, but Marcus could hear the emotion underneath. "You placed yourself between her and death without hesitation." "Anyone would have," Marcus started to say. "No," the queen interrupted. "No Valkari could have survived what you just endured. You saved her life at risk to your own, and then you simply stood up." She paused, and when she spoke again, her words carried the weight of absolute authority. "Marcus Chen of Earth, by the ancient laws of my people, a life debt has been formed. You will remain here, in this palace, under royal protection, until I determine appropriate recompense for the gift you have given me." Marcus blinked. "Your Majesty, that's not necessary. I just did what—" "It is not a request," the queen said. "It is law. It is necessity. It is honor. You will stay, Marcus Chun. This I decree." The other human diplomats were being ushered forward by guards. They looked at Marcus with concern and confusion. He wanted to protest, to explain that he needed to get back to the delegation, that this was just an accident, that he was just doing what anyone would do. But looking at Princess Shivara's face, at the way she watched him like he was something miraculous and terrifying, Marcus realized that nothing about this situation was simple anymore. He had just changed everything. The Royal Medical Wing looked more like an art gallery than a hospital. Marcus sat on a platform that adjusted itself to support his body while Valkari physicians worked on his injuries with tools that hummed and glowed. Everything they did was gentle, almost hesitant, as if they were afraid he might shatter like they would. "This is unnecessary," Marcus said for the 5th time that hour. "I can rejoin the delegation. These are just surface wounds." The lead physician, whose name translated to something like crystal song, made a sound that might have been laughter. "Surface wounds. You have 3 fractured ribs, 17 lacerations requiring sealing, severe muscle trauma, and a foreign object that we removed from your shoulder blade. Yet you walked here under your own power. It's not that bad, Marcus insisted, wincing as they sealed another cut. For you? Perhaps not. Crystal Song's crystalline fingers moved over a holographic display. For my people, any one of these injuries would likely be fatal. The fractured ribs alone would have sent shards into vital organs. Your body is remarkable and terrifying. Marcus had been hearing variations of this for 2 days now. The Valkari seemed split between fascination and horror at human durability. He had tried to explain that humans weren't particularly tough. By Earth standards, that there were people who survived much worse, that the human body was designed to take damage and keep functioning. This only seemed to disturb them more. The door chimed softly, and Queen Ladivera entered. The physicians immediately bowed, their bodies creating a wave of shimmering rainbow light as they bent. "Leave us," the Queen said quietly. The medical staff departed without a word. Marcus tried to stand, but the Queen gestured for him to remain seated. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Better, Your Majesty. Thank you for your hospitality, but I really should return to—" "No," the Queen said simply. She moved closer, her movements still carrying that careful grace despite everything that had happened. "Do you understand what you did, Marcus-chan? I prevented an accident." Anyone would have stopped saying that. The Queen's voice was sharp. She sat on a platform across from him, meeting his eyes directly. "You need to understand our reality. My people are fragile. We evolved on a world with lower gravity than yours, in conditions that favored our crystalline structure but left us breakable. Violence is almost unknown in our society because any physical conflict would result in death for both parties." Marcus nodded slowly. He had read the briefing materials, but seeing it was different than reading about it. "We have achieved much," the Queen continued. "Our mathematics is unmatched. Our technology allows us to manipulate matter at quantum levels. Our art, our music, our philosophy, all beautiful, all precise. But we are weak. A child's fall can be fatal. A strong wind can injure. We live our lives carefully, always carefully." "I understand," Marcus said. "Do you?" The Queen leaned forward. "My daughter was standing beneath tons of falling debris. No Valkari could have reached her in time. Even if they had, the impact would have killed both child and rescuer. But you ran without hesitation, put yourself between her and death, and then stood up from damage that would have destroyed any of my people." She paused, and Marcus saw her crystalline hands trembling slightly. "You saved her life. My daughter, my only child, my heir. She would have died in front of me, and I could have done nothing." The Queen's voice cracked. "Do you have children, Marcus-chan?" "No, Your Majesty." "Then perhaps you cannot fully understand. But know this, you have given me the most precious gift possible. And by our law, by our honor, I cannot allow you to simply walk away as if this was nothing." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "How long must I stay?" "Until the debt is satisfied." The Queen stood. "But there is another matter. Shivara will not leave her chambers. She refuses to speak to anyone. She is traumatized by what happened. But when I mentioned that you were here, recovering, she asked if she could see you." "Me?" "You are the one who saved her. You are also the one who proved that safety is possible. She calls you the soft one who doesn't break." It is the most words she has spoken since the incident. Marcus felt a weight settle on his shoulders. "I'll talk to her, if it helps." The Queen's expression softened. "Thank you. Come, I will take you to her." They walked through corridors that seemed carved from light itself. Guards followed at a respectful distance, their weapons ornamental. Marcus understood now that the Valkari had little use for soldiers. What good was a weapon when everyone was equally fragile? Princess Shivara's chambers were beautiful and sterile. The young princess sat on a cushion near a window that showed the stars beyond the vessel. She looked smaller than Marcus remembered, more delicate. When she saw Marcus, her eyes widened. "You're the one. The human." Marcus knelt down, trying to make himself less imposing. "Hello, princess. I'm Marcus. How are you feeling?" "You're hurt," she said, staring at the bandages visible under his shirt. "A little, but I'm okay. See?" Marcus moved his arms to demonstrate. "Humans heal pretty quickly. You saved me." Her voice was small. "The stone was falling, and you ran so fast. And then the sound. Everything hitting you. Mother says you should have died. But I didn't," Marcus said gently. "I'm right here." Shivara reached out slowly, then stopped. "Can I?" "Sure." Marcus held out his hand. Her crystalline fingers touched his palm, exploring carefully. "You're warm, soft, not like us." She pressed gently. "And you don't break." "Everyone breaks eventually," Marcus said. "Humans just take more to break than your people do. But that's not bad. Your people have so many other strengths." "Like what?" "Well, your mother tells me your people are the best mathematicians in the galaxy. And your technology is incredible. This whole ship is amazing. Humans are tough, but we're not as smart or as advanced." Shivara seemed to consider this. "Can you stay here with us?" Marcus glanced at the queen, who watched from the doorway. "For a while, yes." "Good." The princess's grip on his hand tightened slightly. "I don't want to go outside anymore. Everything is dangerous." "The world is dangerous sometimes," Marcus admitted. "But you can't hide forever. Your people need you. Your mother needs you. But what if something falls again?" Marcus smiled. "Then someone will be there to catch it. Maybe me, maybe someone else. But you can't let fear stop you from living." Over the next several hours, Marcus sat with the princess. They talked about Earth and the Valkari homeworld. She asked endless questions about human biology, about how bones worked, about why skin was soft instead of crystalline. He answered as best he could, surprised by her intelligence and curiosity. When he finally left her chambers, the queen was waiting. "She spoke more in 1 hour with you than she has in 2 days with me," Latavara said quietly. "You have a gift with children." "I just treated her like a person, not a fragile treasure. To us, she is both." The queen was quiet for a moment. "The other humans from your delegation have been recalled to Earth. Your government believes negotiations can continue without them for now. But I have requested that you remain here, Marcus Chen. Not just as payment of a debt, but as something new." "A guardian? A guard?" Marcus frowned. "Your Majesty, I'm a diplomat, not a soldier." "A guardian," the queen corrected. "Someone who can protect what we cannot protect ourselves. Someone who can teach my daughter that the universe is not only danger. Someone who has already proven they will sacrifice themselves for others without hesitation." Marcus thought about Earth, about his career, about everything he was being asked to give up. Then he thought about Shivara's small hand in his, about her fear and her courage. "Temporarily," he said, "until the princess recovers. Then we renegotiate." The queen smiled, and Marcus realized it was the first time he had seen a Valkari truly smile. "Agreed. For now, you are guardian to the heir of the Valkari Empire. May this be the beginning of understanding between our peoples." Marcus had no idea how right she was. 3 months had changed everything. Marcus walked through the royal gardens with Princess Shivara at his side. She moved with more confidence now, no longer taking the tiny, fearful steps that had characterized her first weeks after the accident. She still walked carefully, all Valkari did, but there was joy in her movements now instead of terror. "Tell me again about Earth Oceans," she said. looking up at him with bright eyes. "They're huge," Marcus said, spreading his arms wide. "Bigger than you can see. The water moves in waves, sometimes small, sometimes as tall as buildings. And they're full of live fish, whales, sharks, creatures we're still discovering. And humans go in them? For fun?" Shivara's voice held disbelief. "All the time. Swimming, surfing, diving. When I was your age, I used to spend whole days at the beach." That sounds terrifying. But she was smiling as she said it. This had become their routine. Every day, Marcus would spend hours with the princess, teaching her about humanity while learning about the Valkari. He had become fluent in their language now, no longer needing translation devices. The Valkari had a word for him. Drawshock, which roughly meant stone that lives or living fortress. It was a term of deep respect. They reached a section of the garden where other young Valkari were supposed to play, though Marcus had never seen it used. The area was padded, soft, designed to prevent any possible injury. It looked more like a hospital waiting room than a playground. "Is anyone else ever here?" Marcus asked. Shivara shook her head. "Children don't play together much. It's too dangerous. If we collide, even gently, we could both shatter." Marcus frowned. He had learned so much about Valkari culture in these months, and this was the part that troubled him most. Valkari children were kept isolated, wrapped in safety protocols and padding, rarely allowed to explore or take risks. The result was a society of brilliant, beautiful people who lived in constant fear. "What if we changed that?" Marcus said slowly. "What do you mean?" "What if I taught you how to play safely? With me watching, making sure no one gets hurt?" Shivara's eyes widened. "Mother would never allow it. Let me talk to her." That evening, Marcus requested an audience with the Queen. She received him in her private study, a room filled with holographic displays showing the vast empire she ruled. "You want to do what?" Queen Latavara asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Let Shivara play with other children. Under my supervision." Marcus stood straight, formal. "Your Majesty, the princess has grown so much in these months, but she needs social interaction with her peers." "It's too dangerous," the Queen said. "You've seen how fragile we are. Children are even more so. One accident, one collision. That's why I'll be there. I can move fast enough to prevent collisions. If someone starts to fall, I can catch them. I can be what the Valkari cannot, a safety net." The Queen was quiet for a long time. "You're asking me to risk not just my daughter, but other children on your reflexes?" "I'm asking you to let them be children," Marcus said softly. "Your Majesty, I've watched Shivara bloom over these months. She's brave, curious, brilliant, but she's also lonely. She needs friends, experiences, memories of joy. Isn't that worth some carefully managed risk? What if you fail? What if someone is hurt? Then it's on me. But I won't fail." Queen Latavara studied him for a long moment. "You have more faith in yourself than I have ever seen in any being. It's not faith. It's capability. I've been training, learning to move in your environment, understanding how your children behave. I can do this." Finally, the Queen nodded. "A trial. 3 children, 1 hour, in a controlled space. If anything goes wrong, it won't," Marcus promised. The first session was terrifying for everyone except Marcus and, surprisingly, the children. 3 young Valkari, including Shivara, entered the padded play area under the watchful eyes of a dozen adults. Marcus stood in the center, calm and ready. "Okay," he said in Valkari. "Today we're going to try something new. It's called tag." He explained the simple rules. One person was it and had to touch another person, who then became it. The children stared at him like he had suggested they juggle explosives. "But if we run," one boy said, "we might fall." That's why I'm here. You run, and if you start to fall, I catch you. Watch." Marcus gently pushed Shivara off balance. She gasped, arms windmilling, but before she could fall, Marcus's hand was under her elbow, steadying her. "See? You're safe. I promise." It took 20 minutes of coaxing, but eventually, the children began to move. Slowly at first, just quick walks. Then faster. And then, miraculously, they were running. Not fast by human standards, but for Valkari children, it was unprecedented. Marcus moved among them like a guardian spirit. When a girl tripped, his hand was there. When two children nearly collided, he gently guided them apart. When a boy stumbled backward, Marcus caught him before he could comprehend falling, and the children laughed. It was a sound Marcus had never heard before from the Valkari, pure, unbridled joy. Shivara's laughter rang out like crystal chimes as she chased her friends. The watching adults stood frozen in shock. By the end of the hour, all three children were exhausted, glowing with happiness and completely unharmed. They clustered around Marcus, chattering excitedly, touching his arms and hands with wonder. "Again tomorrow?" Shivara asked breathlessly. "If your mother allows it," Marcus said, smiling. Queen Latavera stepped forward. Her expression was complicated: wonder, fear, gratitude, and something else Marcus couldn't quite identify. "Tomorrow," she agreed. "And perhaps a few more children." Word spread through the palace like wildfire. The human who made play safe. The guardian who could catch falling stars. Within 2 weeks, Marcus was supervising groups of 20 children at a time. It was exhausting work that required constant vigilance, but seeing the children's joy made it worthwhile. The cultural impact was profound. Parents who had kept their children isolated began to bring them to the palace. Educators started discussing new approaches. The Valkari had always valued safety above all else, but now they were beginning to understand that absolute safety might come at too high a cost. Marcus was teaching a particularly energetic session when the warning klaxons began to sound. "Everyone, stop," Marcus commanded. The children froze immediately, trained to obey his voice. Royal guards rushed into the garden. "Guardian Chun, you must take the princess to safety. There has been a breach." Marcus's body went into a different mode, focused, tactical. "What kind of breach?" "Assassins. House Velmaris. They're inside the palace." Marcus felt ice in his veins. House Velmaris was a rival noble house that had opposed Earth's alliance. He had been briefed on them, but never thought they would be bold enough to attack the palace. "How many?" "We don't know. At least 5 confirmed." Marcus looked at the frightened children. "Get them to the secure chambers. Now, I'm taking Shivara to the throne room." "The throne room?" "That's where the queen—" "Exactly. They'll expect us to hide. We're gonna fight." Marcus scooped up Shivara, who clung to him without question. As they ran through the palace corridors, guards fell in around them. Marcus's mind raced through human tactical training ambush points, choke points, defensive positions. They found the queen in the throne room, surrounded by guards who looked terrified. Valkari guards were trained, yes, but they had never faced real violence. Their weapons were designed for precision, not combat. "Mother!" Shivara cried out. "Shivara, no!" The queen reached for her daughter. "You should be in the secure." An explosion rocked the palace. One of the throne room walls shattered, and figures poured through the breach. They wore armor designed for Valkari physiology and carried weapons that hummed with energy. "Surrender the queen," one assassin said, "and the rest of you may survive." Marcus gently put Shivara down behind the throne. "Stay here. Don't move. Marcus, trust me." Then Marcus stepped forward, putting himself between the royal family and the assassins. He smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "Gentlemen, he said in perfect Valkari. "I'm afraid you've made a terrible mistake. You see, I'm human, and humans don't break." The lead assassin laughed. "You're one organic against 5 of us with weapons. Stand aside." "No," Marcus said simply. "You stand aside, or we'll find out just how much damage a human can take, and how much damage a human can give." For the first time in months, Marcus wasn't a diplomat or a guardian or a teacher. He was something the Valkari had never truly encountered, a human, ready to fight. And the assassins were about to learn why humanity had conquered a world that didn't want to be conquered. The assassin's energy weapon discharged with a sound like breaking glass. Marcus moved. The bolt of energy meant for the Queen struck him in the chest instead, sending him staggering backward. Pain exploded through his torso, but he kept his feet. "Bad choice," Marcus growled, and launched himself forward. The Valkari had never seen human combat before. They had watched historical videos from Earth, with detached academic interest, primitive beings hurting each other in crude ways. But watching the recording and facing it in person were entirely different experiences. Marcus moved like violence given form. He closed the distance to the first assassin in 3 strides, faster than the Valkari could track. His fist connected with the assassin's weapon, shattering the crystalline components. His other hand grabbed the assassin's arm and threw him backward into 2 of his companions. All 3 went down in a tangle of fragile limbs. "Guards, protect the Queen," Marcus shouted. "Get the princess out now." A second energy bolt caught him in the shoulder. Marcus felt the burn, smelled his own flesh cooking, but pushed through the pain. He grabbed a piece of the shattered wall and threw it at the shooter. The chunk of debris hit like a missile, and the assassin went down hard. The remaining 2 assassins had backed up, their confidence evaporating. One spoke rapidly into a communication device. "He's human. The human is here. We need backup." Marcus didn't give them time to finish. He tackled one, driving them both to the ground. The assassin's crystalline body cracked under the impact, not shattered, but damaged. Marcus pulled the weapon from his hand and threw it away. The last assassin ran, not toward the Queen, but away from Marcus. Pure terror overriding training. Marcus let him go, turning back to check on the royal family. The Queen stood frozen, staring at the scene of destruction. 4 assassins lay incapacitated on the floor. Marcus stood among them, bleeding from multiple wounds, breathing heavily, but undefeated. "Get out of the throne room," Marcus said firmly. "They might have more coming. Move to the secure chambers, now." As if his words had summoned them, more figures appeared in the breach. 6 more assassins, better armed, moving with military precision. "There's too many," one of the royal guards whispered in horror. Marcus looked at the Queen, then at where Shivara was peeking out from behind the throne, her eyes wide with fear and something else. "Trust. Your Majesty, go. I'll hold them." "You can't fight them all," the Queen started. "Watch me." What followed would be spoken of in Valkari history for generations. The human who stood alone against a dozen assassins. Marcus used everything he had: his speed, his strength, his durability, and most importantly, his understanding of how fragile the Valkari were. He used the environment, throwing debris, using walls for cover. He accepted hits that would have killed any Valkari, tanking energy bolts that should have stopped him, turning his body into a weapon. When an assassin got close, Marcus used precise strikes to disarm or disable without killing broken weapons. Dislocated joints, careful applications of overwhelming force. But even human endurance has limits. A blade found his side. An energy bolt burned through his leg. Marcus fell to one knee, and the assassins pressed their advantage. Then the royal guard arrived. Not many, only 15 soldiers, but they had regrouped, found courage in Marcus's example. They opened fire with precision weapons, forcing the assassins to divide their attention. Marcus used the distraction. Despite his injuries, despite the blood loss, he searched forward one more time. He reached the lead assassin, the one coordinating the attack, and took him down with a devastating blow. The other assassins saw their leader fall to this impossible creature and broke formation. "Retreat!" one of them shouted. "He's unkillable." They fled back through the breach, and royal guards sealed the throne room behind them. Marcus stood for another moment, making sure the threat was truly gone. Then his legs gave out, and he collapsed to the floor. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Shivara's face, tears streaming down her crystalline cheeks, her small hands reaching for him. Marcus woke 3 days later in the medical wing. His body was wrapped in so many bandages, he looked like a mummy. Hovering devices monitored his vital signs, and he could see Valkari medical staff working frantically around him. "Easy," Crystal Song said, appearing in his field of vision. "Don't try to move. You've been severely injured. Multiple energy burns, internal bleeding, a collapsed lung, 3 more fractured ribs, lacerations too numerous to count." Is the Queen? Marcus's voice came out as a rasp. "Safe. The princess is safe. Everyone is safe because of you." Crystal Song's hands moved over the displays. "But you nearly died, Marcus Chun. Your heart stopped twice during treatment. We've never dealt with human biology in such a critical state." It was educational and terrifying. Over the next week, as Marcus slowly healed, he learned what had happened. The assassination attempt had been part of a coup by House Volmaris. They had opposed the human alliance, seeing it as a corruption of Valkari culture. The attack had failed, and the conspirators had been arrested. Queen Ladivera visited every day. She sat beside Marcus's bed and told him about the political aftermath, about how his defense of the throne had shocked the entire empire. "You changed everything," she said during one visit. "The Valkari have spent millennia believing that violence was impossible for us, that we could only survive through caution and isolation. But you showed us that protection is possible. That strength can serve beauty. That fragility doesn't have to mean helplessness." "I just did what needed doing," Marcus said. "You nearly died for my family." Again, the Queen's voice was soft. "How do I repay such a debt?" Before Marcus could answer, the door chimed. Shivara entered, carrying something in her hands. She approached the bed slowly, and Marcus saw that she was holding fragments of her own crystalline skin pieces she had deliberately shed. "In our culture," Shivara said, her voice trembling, "we only shed our skin for family. It's the highest honor, the greatest trust. It means you are part of us, Marcus, forever." She placed the fragments on the table beside him, and Marcus felt something break open in his chest. Not pain, something else. Something profound. "Thank you, Princess," he managed to say. After Shivara left, the Queen remained. "Earth has sent a message," she said. "They want you back. For debriefing, they say, but also for training. They want to create a program humans as protectors for alien dignitaries. Guardians for hire." Marcus felt cold. "Mercenaries." They didn't use that word, but yes. They see an opportunity. Human durability is a commodity. What did you tell them? That the decision is yours. But I have something to offer if you're willing to listen. The Queen leaned forward. "Stay. Not as a temporary guardian, not as payment for a debt. Stay as the first ambassador guardian of the Valkari. Help me build something new, an alliance between our peoples based on mutual respect, not economics. Teach us about strength. Let us teach you about precision. Be the bridge between our worlds." Marcus was quiet for a long time. "And if I go?" "Then you go with our gratitude and friendship. But the Valkari will lose something precious. And I believe you will too." That night, Marcus lay awake despite the pain medication. He thought about Earth, about his career in the diplomatic corps, about his apartment in New York that he hadn't seen in months. He thought about the life he had planned. Then he thought about HFY's after in the garden, about the children learning to play, about the Queen's offer and what it meant, about being part of something bigger than himself. Earth sent 3 more messages over the next 2 weeks. The first was a request. The second was a strong suggestion. The third was an ultimatum. Return within 10 days or be considered a view from the diplomatic service. Queen Latavera found Marcus in the garden, where he had first taught HFY to run. He was moving slowly, still healing, but determined to regain his strength. Earth's deadline approaches. She said, I know. I need to tell you something. I've spent these weeks in negotiations with other species in the galaxy. The Valkari are not the only fragile people among the stars. There are dozens of species who value what you represent. I'm proposing a new alliance, one where Earth and the Valkari stand together, offering protection and precision to those who need it. Not mercenaries, but partners. That's a big idea, Marcus said. It's a necessary one. The galaxy is dangerous. The beautiful and brilliant need the strong and adaptable. And the strong need the brilliant to give their strength purpose. We need each other, Marcus. The question is, will you be part of building this future? Marcus looked out at the garden, at the place where he had changed lives simply by believing that safety and joy could coexist. He thought about what he had learned, what he had become, what he might still become. I need to make a call, he said finally. The next day, Marcus stood before a holographic display showing representatives from Earth's diplomatic corps. They looked annoyed, impatient. Marcus Chen, one official said, you have one last chance to explain your absence and return to Earth. Marcus stood straight despite his healing wounds. I'm not coming back. At least, not permanently. That's desertion. No, Marcus interrupted. It's diplomacy. The Valkari are offering something unprecedented, a formal alliance that could change humanity's position in the galaxy. But it requires trust, and trust requires. Earth's answer came 2 weeks later. Marcus stood in the Grand Hall where everything had started, where he had first shielded HFY with his body. The debris had been cleared long ago, the ceiling repaired. But Marcus would never forget the sound of metal and stone falling. The split-second decision that had changed his life. The holographic display showed not diplomatic functionaries this time, but someone more important, Secretary General Park of the United Earth Government. Behind her stood military officials, scientists, and cultural advisors. Marcus Chun, Secretary Park said, we've reviewed your proposal. We've consulted with xenosociologists, political strategists, and military analysts. The decision wasn't unanimous. Marcus's heart sank. He had gambled everything on Earth, understanding the opportunity. However, Park continued, a slight smile crossing her face. The majority agreed that sometimes the best diplomatic moves are the ones that seem crazy at first. You have authorization to accept the position of Ambassador Guardian with full diplomatic immunity and Earth's backing. Congratulations, Ambassador Chan. Try not to get killed building your alliance. Relief washed through Marcus. Behind him, he heard HFY's delighted laugh and the Queen's quiet exhale of relief. Thank you. Secretary Park, I won't let Earth down. See that you don't. We're sending a support team, cultural specialists, medical personnel, and 2 additional diplomats. But you're the face of this alliance. The man who stood between a queen and death. No pressure. The transmission ended, and Marcus turned to find himself immediately enveloped in careful hugs from HFY and several other young Valkari who had gathered to watch. The queen approached more formally, but Marcus could see the emotion in her crystalline features. Thank you, she said simply. for staying, for believing. Thank you for giving me the chance, Marcus replied. The following month was a whirlwind of activity. The Queen had been busy during Marcus's negotiations with Earth. She had reached out to other species in the galaxy, particularly those with physical vulnerabilities similar to the Valkari. The response had been overwhelming. The Tlari, a species of beings made of something like living glass, sent representatives. The Sopho, whose bodies were so sensitive to touch that they typically lived in isolation, arrived in specialized environmental suits. The Kincha, whose extreme intelligence came at the cost of almost no physical resilience, sent their finest scholars. Marcus stood in a newly constructed conference chamber, watching representatives from 12 species gather for the first summit. Each one was brilliant, accomplished, and fragile in their own way. Each one had spent millennia adapting to a galaxy that was often too rough for their bodies. "Is this really going to work?" asked Dr. Sarah Chun, one of the human specialists Earth had sent. No relation to Marcus, though they had joked about starting a family business. "It has to," Marcus said. "Look at them. Each one of these species has something incredible to offer, but they've been limited by their physical vulnerabilities. Humans aren't the strongest species in the galaxy, but we're durable enough to make a difference. And if humans start seeing this as a protection racket, a way to gain power over weaker species..." Marcus had thought about this extensively. "That's why we're structuring it as true exchange. They're not clients, they're partners. The Valkari teach us quantum mathematics. The Dalari share their zero-point energy research. The Kincha help us understand consciousness. We offer protection and durability. They offer knowledge and advancement. Everyone benefits." The summit began with Queen Lativara's speech. She stood before the assembled representatives, her voice clear and strong. "For millennia, we, the fragile peoples of the galaxy, have survived through caution. We have built our civilizations in the spaces between dangers, avoiding conflict, minimizing risk. We have achieved great things, but always with the knowledge that the galaxy is not made for us." She gestured to Marcus, who stood to one side with several other humans. But then came humanity, a species that could survive what would destroy us, a species that chose not to dominate but to protect. One human, Marcus Chen, threw himself between death and my daughter without hesitation. He asked for nothing, expected nothing. He simply saw someone in danger and acted. The Queen's eyes swept across the gathered representatives. "That is the foundation of what we propose today. Not protection bought with fear or coin, but partnership built on mutual respect. We offer our knowledge, our technology, our culture. They offer their strength, their adaptability, their willingness to stand between us and harm. Together, we become something greater than either species alone." The discussions that followed lasted for 3 days. There were concerns, debates, careful negotiations about the terms of partnership. But gradually, a framework emerged. The alliance of brilliant and bold, some were calling it. Others preferred the partnership of strength and wisdom. Marcus preferred to think of it simply as friends, helping friends. The practical implementation began immediately. 12 humans, carefully selected and trained, were assigned as guardian ambassadors to different species. Each one would live among their assigned people, learning their culture, protecting them, and teaching them about humanity. In exchange, human scientists and scholars would study with the greatest minds in the galaxy. Marcus's role became something unique. He remained with the Valkari, but he also served as the coordinator between all the Guardian ambassadors. He was the first, the template, the example others followed. 6 months after the alliance was formally established, Marcus walked through the palace gardens with Shivara. She was taller now, more confident, no longer the frightened child who had clung to him after the assassination attempt. She walked with purpose, though she still took his hand when they navigated crowded areas. Guardian Takashi sent a message today, Shivara said. She had taken to helping Marcus coordinate communications between the various guardians. The Dalari children are learning to dance. Actual dancing, Marcus. They've never been able to before because they were too afraid of colliding. That's wonderful, Marcus said, genuinely pleased. And the Saval scientists have developed a new treatment for human nerve damage based on their understanding of sensory systems. Earth's medical community is very excited. This was how it worked. Small exchanges, building trust, creating connections. The galaxy was slowly changing, one friendship at a time. They reached the section of the garden where Marcus still held his play sessions with Valkari children. The group had grown to nearly 50 children now. Other adults had learned to help supervise, though Marcus was still the fastest responder when someone stumbled. But increasingly, the children caught each other. They had learned from watching humans how to brace a fall, how to roll with impact, how to help friends without panicking. They were still fragile, still needed careful watching, but they were learning that fragility didn't mean helplessness. Marcus, Shivara said quietly, do you ever regret staying? You gave up your whole life on Earth. Marcus thought about it honestly. He had given up a comfortable apartment, a successful career path, the familiar gravity and atmosphere of home. He missed coffee, real Earth coffee. He missed his family, though he could talk to them through holographic communications, but he had gained so much more. Look around, Marcus said, gesturing at the playing children, at the palace that had become his home, at the princess who had become like a daughter to him. I helped build this, a place where fragile beings can be brave, where different species learn from each other, where strength protects beauty instead of threatening it. How could I regret that? Mother says you're going to be formally adopted into our house, Shivara said. That you'll be the first human to receive a Valkari family name. She mentioned that possibility, Marcus admitted. What do you think about it? Shivara squeezed his hand. I think you've been family since the moment you covered me with your body. The name is just making it official. The ceremony took place a month later. Marcus stood in the grand hall wearing formal robes that combined human and Valkari design. The queen performed the ancient ritual of family adoption, speaking words in old Valkari that dated back thousands of years. When it was done, Marcus Chung became Marcus Chen Latavera, the first human to bear a Valkari house name, the first guardian ambassador. The bridge between worlds, representatives from Earth attended, including Secretary Park. After the ceremony, she pulled Marcus aside. You've started something remarkable, she said. 3 more species have applied to join the alliance this month, and the technology exchanges are exceeding all projections. Humanity has learned more in 6 months than in the previous decade. It's not just about technology, Marcus said. It's about understanding, about finding our place in the galaxy, not through conquest or isolation, but through cooperation. Spoken like a true diplomat. Park smiled. Though I heard you also broke up 2 bar fights last week and carried a drunk Kinsha scholar back to his quarters. Marcus laughed. Guardian work is varied. As the celebration continued into the evening, Marcus found a quiet moment on a balcony overlooking the city. Valkari architecture stretched out below him, beautiful and precise, lit by soft bioluminescent lights that never grew too bright or harsh. Shivara joined him, now wearing the formal sash that marked her.